Campaign 2018 is sponsored by Wisconsin Hospital Association, Wisconsin Counties Association, Wisconsin Realtors Association, Marshfield Clinic Health System, and Campaign 2018 partner Milwaukee Journal Sentinel.
WisconsinEye coverage of the 2018 elections continues. We're at the Milwaukee Public Library. Joshua Parr of Brookfield is a Republican candidate in the 14th Assembly District. Joshua, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Hi, nice to be here.
You're a first-time candidate. Give us the short version
Yes.
of your bio.
I served in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years, and now that I'm out, I want to continue to serve my country. And I'm also getting married in August. I want to leave Wisconsin a better place for my family. My 3 main points is DOT reform. It spends way too much on way too little. It takes way too long getting it done. Criminal justice reform. We should put the law-abiding citizens first and criminals second, not the other way around. And then the last thing is small and new business advocacy. I have a lot of family and friends that have small businesses, and they have hired me, and I want to give back to them.
Well, thanks. I want to go, let's start with DOT reform.
Yes.
On your website, you say Wisconsin should go to the Montana style of road construction.
Yes.
I'm sorry, forgive me. I don't have a clue what the Montana style of road construction is.
That's all right. So in Montana, there is, especially in the west with the valleys and mountains, there's one way up and there's one way down. You can't have months and months on end of blocking up the roads. Otherwise, the infrastructure stops down, cities stop. There's only one way, one way only, so they have to keep them clear. So what they do is they pave off one side or clear off one side of the asphalt, and then when they're not working on it, they open it back up. And then they keep, they'll strip a whole lane down as much as they can and open it back up. And then when they put the asphalt down, they put it up in the late evening, early morning, and then you can drive on it in the mornings again. So that way, there's no downtime. And then they also don't hire barrels and cones. In that way, they're only out there when the construction companies are actually out there. Here, you have them weeks ahead of time. They repaint the roads, they put cones out, and that's all charged to Wisconsin per cone and barrel per day. We don't own it, we rent it.
Okay. Do you see any need to raise our gas tax, the registration fee, or where are you on tolling?
I'm against all that stuff. We don't have a funding issue, we have a spending issue. Montana can do it for $2,000 cheaper than we can per mile of road, and they have worse topography, they have worse weather, they have more traffic due to 94 going west, and then another highway that goes from Mexico to Canada, and then they also have 1,000-pound animals like elk going over that, and that does a much harsher dent to the roads than our roads do.
Now, your second issue was criminal justice reform. What
Yes.
specifically do you favor?
So I support stop and frisk. I support the broken windows policy, both of which was implemented in New York City, and they both were very successful. Back in 2009, I lost an uncle and a cousin to a bad accident, and the other truck was driven by 3 illegal immigrants that were hired by a local landscaping company. And then last year, I lost a second cousin to a repeat drunk driver in West Allis. And I feel bad for those people, but at the same time, I don't want that to happen to more law-abiding citizens here in Wisconsin.
A big issue in the next budget is, do we need a new state prison with Green Bay and Waupun being built in the 1800s, and we're closing our 2 juvenile prisons? Do you think we need a new state prison for adults?
I believe it should be updated, and the facility should represent the rate of crime that we currently have. If we need more prisons, we need more prisons. If back in 80s, 70s, if we had been tougher on crime, there would be less crimes, there'd be less criminals, and then we wouldn't need these new prisons like we do now. If we kick the can down the road, and now we have to fix those problems.
Part of the debate on criminal justice is, do we legalize recreational marijuana and medical marijuana? Do you have a position?
I used to be for medical marijuana, and then I found out about hemp-based CBD oil, which works just as well as marijuana-based CBD oil. So now I'm not sure where I stand on that. I'll leave it up to the voters to decide where they want me on that. But as for recreational marijuana, I'm against that. I believe it would be irresponsible. And then even if it is regulated, I had a friend out in Washington who did have his own marijuana plant, but Washington and California both regulate the industries out of, they regulate marijuana out of the industry. And so black market marijuana in California is more popular and easier to get than the actual legal stuff.
The current state budget includes a major increase in state aid for K-12 schools. Do you think Wisconsin now spends about enough on K-12 schools, or do we need to spend significantly more?
I feel, again, that we don't have a funding issue, we have a spending issue. The bureaucracies of these schools, they take so much of that money instead of leaving it to teachers and student resources. MPS is a good example. They have more funding per student than any other school district in Wisconsin, and yet they're failing. Elmbrook School District, by comparison, is more of the middle of the pack, and yet they have the best system and nationally ranked in, in Wisconsin. So again, we don't have a funding issue, we have a spending issue and a waste issue.
You mentioned NPS. The four-year graduation rate is about 60%. Any thoughts on how to raise that NPS graduation rate, Josh?
Well, for one thing, we should encourage education. Right now, I believe in NPS system, we don't encourage that. If kids fall behind, we just let them fall behind, or we just move them on to the next level without them being ready for it. I believe in the charter school system that is doing a lot better job, and with that competition, the innovation that they bring, that NPS will be forced to either update and upgrade their system, or that they're going to fall to the wayside and new system come in place.
Charter schools is one option. The choice in the voucher program is another option. It's expanded from Milwaukee to Racine to statewide. Do you support this choice program?
And I believe that there shouldn't be limits on it. I believe in competition and innovation across the whole board, and I don't think it should be just left to a particular group, but that anyone should be able to receive that.
What are the residents of the district you want to represent telling you about health care issues?
I haven't heard much specifically. I do know that Frederick is nearby, and there's a lot of people in Frederick that live in the nearby area, but I do support direct primary care. It allows people to work directly with their primary care physicians, and that brings down costs, and it brings down primarily costs, and it brings back the bureaucracy or the paperwork, so that way it's better for everyone. I've talked to people who have gone through it and doctors that go through it, and they're happier. They feel that their time is more valuable, and overall everyone's more pleased with it.
Do you think state government has a role or a duty or an obligation to retain and recruit doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals?
Can you
do you think does state government have a role in providing incentives to be sure that we have enough physicians, nurses, and other medical
That's a good question.
Professionals?
I'm not sure on that, where I stand on that.
Okay.
I believe if we should let the market dictate that.
You're running in a suburban district. What about thoughts on rural health care, where people are older, younger, leaving, household income is less than the state average? Any thoughts on ways to maintain and maybe improve rural health care?
Again, with direct primary care, people can work directly with their physician, and they don't have to go through insurance companies. They don't have to go to bigger hospitals. They can work directly with their local doctors with that.
Your campaign website says you favor the Teacher Protection Act.
Yes.
Exactly what are the provisions of the Teacher Protection Act?
I don't know all of the provisions, but what I like about it most is that I believe teachers should have a right to protect themselves, especially to and from their car. I heard a story about recently someone working in Racine, and she felt unsafe going to her car to work, and she told the school district about it, and they didn't provide security, so she had to bring her own security, taser, and when they found out about it, they penalized her for it. And she tried the proper routes to do that, but they didn't accommodate that, and so they hurt her, and when they hurt her, they hurt everybody else, and I don't believe that's okay.
In light of mass shootings, school shootings, do we need to change gun laws, or are you satisfied with where they are now?
I think gun laws are too strict. The gun-free zones, we are seeing throughout America that that experiment has failed. That the stronger the gun control, the worse the gun crime. Chicago is a good example of that.
Local governments have lived with levy limits, limiting their property taxes
Yes.
for 12 years. Local government officials say, hey, these limits sometimes are hurting our ability to provide local services. Should we loosen the limits, not change them, or get rid of them?
I think they should even be lower. I think property taxes are way too high. And
So you think it should be tighter?
Yes.
Tighter limits?
Yes.
Excuse me, go ahead.
Yes.
Because
It
of
hurts
property taxes?
Yes, because of property taxes, it hurts the elderly, it hurts young couples, and it hurts people trying to make their way in the new world after they graduate. And cost of living is pretty high. Again, like I said, I'm getting married in August, and $40,000 with $4,000 of that going to property taxes is quite high. And I know it's tough for me. I know that's going to be tough for other couples and other young people and the elderly.
UW system funding, we're in the 6th year of a tuition freeze
Yes.
on resident undergraduate tuition. Should the freeze be continued into a 7th and 8th year?
Yes, I believe that. I believe the 2-year system has done a great job with its funding and spending levels, but I believe that the 4-year, again, is bureaucracy, corruption, and waste that is taking too much of that money. And now the 2-year and 4-year programs are being merged under the 4-year program. And that's just going to make the 2 years, those that could afford the 2-year, much more difficult.
The package of more than $4 billion in state and local tax breaks and incentives to Foxconn, is that a wise investment for the state?
I believe so, yes. Those tax breaks to Foxconn are conditional. They only get that stuff when Foxconn delivers on its end of the bargain. Furthermore, I'd rather take a little bit of money now with a guarantee of more money later than no money at all from those taxes. It's a long-term investment and long-term goal, and I like that.
Over the last 2 or 3 years, more than a dozen bills have been passed to fight our epidemic of methamphetamine, heroin, and opioids. Do you have any thoughts on the next step to fight this epidemic? Excuse me.
I believe we should go at it at the source. If we nickel and dime the gangs or the criminals or the drug dealers, and even if they won't get put in prison, if we just make it a pain for them to operate in our area, then they will move on. I believe that was tried in a district in Milwaukee by one of the aldermen. I don't remember the name or district at the moment, but it worked there, and they moved on to somewhere else. And I believe that we can do that on a larger scale in Wisconsin.
Then finally, you want to highlight differences between you and your opponents in the August 14th primary?
Not too much. I get along pretty well with them. I have a good professional relationship, but I do believe that I have the better positions. I'm more specific in what I want to do and how I want to get there. And I believe I have the fire and the passion to fight for the 14th, to fight for what I believe in, and fight for the moral values that we need to fight for.
Thank you. Joshua Parr of Brookfield is a Republican candidate in the 14th Assembly District. The primary is August 14th. Josh, thanks for talking to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.